Welcome to Crime Story with Camila, where we dive deep into the most chilling and mysterious true crime cases. If you love real-life crime stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and share so you never miss an update. Your support helps us bring you the most in-depth investigations and untold stories. In the early morning hours of November 15, 1959, an idyllic farming community in western Kansas was shattered by an unspeakable crime. For members of the Clutter family, respected, peaceful, and well-liked in their tight-knit town of Holcomb, were found brutally murdered in their own home. This shocking attack not only stunned the local community, but captured the attention of an entire nation. Today, we take you deep into the events, people, and investigation of the Clutter family murders, a crime that inspired Truman Capote's In Cold Blood, one of the most influential works in the true crime genre. Before the murders, there was nothing about the Clutter family that suggested danger. No enemies. No scandals, no secrets that could justify what happened next. They lived on a large wheat farm just outside Holcomb, Kansas, a quiet town where doors were rarely locked and everyone knew each other's name. At the head of the household was Herbert William Herb Clutter, age 48. Herb was a successful and highly respected farmer, known across Finney County for his discipline, honesty, and strong moral code. He served on agricultural boards, ran his farm without government assistance, and was considered a model citizen. Investigators later confirmed there was no evidence that Herb Clutter kept large amounts of cash in his home. His wife, Bonnie Mae Clutter, age 45, lived a more private life. She suffered from recurring depression and anxiety, a condition documented in medical records and known only within the family. Because of this, Bonnie spent much of her time inside the home, rarely attending public events, a detail that would later become tragically significant. Their two youngest children lived with them. Nancy Clutter, 16, was an honor student at Holcomb High School. She was active in church, taught Sunday school, played the piano, and helped care for her mother. Friends and teachers described her as dependable, kind, and unusually mature for her age. Her brother, Kenyon Clutter, 15, was quiet and mechanically gifted. He spent hours in the basement workshop building furniture and working with tools, a hobby confirmed by police photographs taken after the murders. The Clutter family had no history of violence, no known disputes, and no reason to believe they were in danger. Yet on the night of November 14, 1959, every one of them would be bound, silenced, and executed inside the home they believed was safe. They were not killed because of who they were. They were killed because someone believed a lie. And by the time that lie was exposed, it was already too late. The men responsible for the Clutter family murders were not strangers to violence. They were not desperate drifters. They were not driven by hunger. They were recently released convicts who believed they could commit the perfect crime. The first was Richard Eugene Dick Hickock, 28 years old. Hickock was intelligent, manipulative, and reckless. He had a long criminal history that included theft, forgery, and passing bad checks. While incarcerated at the Kansas State Penitentiary, Hickock developed a reputation for lying easily and convincing others to follow his plans. Prison records and testimony later confirmed that Hickock was the primary planner of the Clutter robbery. The second was Perry Edward Smith, age 31. Smith had endured a deeply unstable childhood marked by abuse, abandonment, and trauma. As a teenager, he was placed in Catholic orphanages where documented physical abuse occurred. As an adult, he struggled with chronic pain from a motorcycle accident and carried a history of violent behavior. Psychological evaluations presented at trial described Smith as emotionally damaged, but fully aware of his actions. Hickock and Smith met while serving time in prison. It was there that Hickock learned of the Clutter family through another inmate, Floyd Wells, a former farmhand for Herb Clutter. Wells mentioned, incorrectly, that Clutter kept large sums of cash in a home safe. Investigators later confirmed this information was false. After their release in 1959, Hickock contacted Smith and proposed the plan: rob the Clutters, leave no witnesses, and disappear. According to trial testimony, Hickock insisted the murders were necessary if the robbery went wrong. Smith initially claimed he never intended to kill, a statement contradicted by his later confession and forensic evidence. On November 14, 1959, armed with a shotgun and a hunting knife, the two men drove toward Holcomb, Kansas. By the time they reached the Clutter farmhouse, the decision to kill had already been made. The Clutter family was never supposed to die. At least, not according to the plan Richard Hickock told himself. The idea began inside the Kansas State Penitentiary, where Hickock shared a cell block with Floyd Wells, a former farmhand who had once worked for Herb Clutter. During casual prison conversations, Wells mentioned that Clutter was a successful farmer who paid his workers in cash. What Wells did not say, and what Hickock falsely assumed, was that there was a safe in the Clutter home filled with money. That lie became the foundation of everything that followed. After their release in 1959, Hickock contacted Perry Smith and laid out the plan in precise terms. Drive to Holcomb, break into the Clutter farmhouse at night, steal the cash, and eliminate any witnesses. According to trial testimony, Hickock believed the robbery would be clean, fast, and profitable. He assured Smith that Herb Clutter was a soft target, a man who would comply and offer no resistance. To prepare, the two men gathered supplies: a 12-gauge shotgun, a hunting knife, gloves, and rope for restraining the family. They also modified the shotgun, sawing down the barrel to make it easier to handle inside the house, a detail later confirmed by ballistic evidence. On the evening of November 14, 1959, Hickock and Smith drove more than 400 miles across Kansas in Hickock's car, arriving near the Clutter property after nightfall. They parked along a dirt road and waited until the farmhouse went dark. What neither man verified, what they never bothered to confirm, was whether the safe even existed. It didn't. Herb Clutter conducted nearly all of his business by check. Investigators later confirmed that there was no safe, no hidden cash, and no large sums of money anywhere in the house. The entire crime, the planning, the drive, the weapons, was built on a false assumption. And once the men stepped inside the Clutter home, there was no turning back. Just after midnight on November 15, 1959, Richard Hickock and Perry Smith entered the Clutter farmhouse. The door was unlocked. Inside, the house was silent. The two men moved room to room, waking the family one by one. Herb Clutter was the first. He was taken to the basement, where his hands and feet were bound and his mouth taped shut. Bonnie Clutter was restrained in the master bedroom upstairs. 16-year-old Nancy Clutter and 15-year-old Kenyon Clutter were also bound, each placed in separate rooms. According to both confessions and physical evidence, the family offered no resistance. The men searched the house for the safe. They tore through drawers, cabinets, and closets. There was nothing. No cash. No hidden vault. No fortune. What followed was not panic, it was decision. Trial testimony confirmed that Hickock repeatedly asked Smith what should be done. Smith later admitted that he believed leaving witnesses would guarantee capture. At that moment, the robbery ended, and the murders began. Herb Clutter was killed first in the basement. He was shot at close range with a shotgun, and his throat was cut afterward, a detail confirmed by the autopsy and forensic photographs. Bonnie Clutter was killed next in her bedroom. She was shot while lying on her bed, still bound. Downstairs, Kenyon Clutter was shot in the head while lying on the couch in the basement utility room. Nancy Clutter was the last to die. She was killed in her bedroom. Evidence showed she was shot at close range. Each victim was murdered separately. Each execution was deliberate. Before leaving the house, Hickock and Smith cut the telephone line. They took only a portable radio, a pair of binoculars, and approximately $40 in cash. Then they drove away into the Kansas night. By sunrise, an entire family was gone, not because they resisted, not because they fought back, but because they were in the wrong house at the wrong time, targeted by men who could not accept failure. The Clutter family was expected at church on the morning of Sunday, November 15, 1959. When they failed to arrive, concern spread quickly through the small town of Holcomb. Families didn't simply disappear here, especially not the Clutters. Later that morning, two of Nancy Clutter's close friends, Susan Kidwell and Nancy Ewalt, drove to the Clutter farmhouse to check on her. When they arrived, nothing appeared disturbed from the outside. The doors were still locked. The house was quiet. Inside, the silence was overwhelming. In Nancy's bedroom, they found her lying in bed, motionless. At first, they thought she was sleeping. Then they saw the blood. Horrified, the girls ran from the house and immediately alerted neighbors, who contacted the Finney County Sheriff's Office. Deputies arrived within minutes and quickly realized the situation was far worse than anyone imagined. In the basement, officers discovered Kenyon Clutter, bound and shot. Downstairs, in the furnace room, they found Herb Clutter, his body still tied, exactly where the killers had left him. Upstairs, Bonnie Clutter was found in her bed, also bound and killed. By midday, The farmhouse was sealed off as a crime scene. Word spread rapidly through Holcomb. Schools closed early. Businesses shut their doors. Kansas Bureau of Investigation agents were called in to assist, recognizing immediately that this was not a robbery gone wrong, but a calculated mass murder. There were no signs of forced entry, no obvious motive, no immediate suspects. In a town where violent crime was nearly unheard of, fear replaced familiarity overnight. And for the first time since the murders, the killers were already gone. Within hours of the discovery, law enforcement knew this was not a local crime. There were no signs of forced entry, no fingerprints left behind, and no obvious motive. Whoever killed the Clutters had planned their escape. The Kansas Bureau of Investigation took control of the case, working alongside the Finney County Sheriff's Office. Roadblocks were set up, vehicles were checked, but the killers were already far ahead. For weeks, the investigation stalled. Then a single tip changed everything. Inside the Kansas State Penitentiary, inmate Floyd Wells recognized details of the murders that matched conversations he had once had with Richard Hickock. Wells contacted authorities and told investigators that Hickock had spoken openly about robbing the Clutter family and leaving no witnesses. This information gave investigators their first real suspects. Authorities tracked Hickock's movements after his release from prison and discovered that he had left Kansas with Perry Smith shortly after the murders. Using employment records, parole documentation, and vehicle registrations, investigators traced the pair across multiple states. On December 30th, 1959, more than 6 weeks after the murders, Hickock and Smith were located and arrested in Las Vegas, Nevada, on unrelated charges. During questioning, both men initially denied involvement, but the evidence was closing in. When investigators recovered the Clutter's stolen radio and linked ballistic evidence to the shotgun used in the murders, the story began to unravel. Soon after, Perry Smith confessed. Hickock followed. The manhunt was over. But the most disturbing details of what happened inside the Clutter home were only just beginning to surface. Richard Hickock and Perry Smith were returned to Kansas in early 1960, where they were formally charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. The trial was held in Finney County, in the town of Garden City, just miles from where the Clutter family had been killed. Due to the brutality of the crime and intense public attention, security around the courthouse was tight. From the beginning, the prosecution's case was direct and overwhelming. Jurors heard detailed testimony from Kansas Bureau of Investigation agents, forensic experts, and witnesses who traced the defendants' movements before and after the murders. Physical evidence included the recovered radio taken from the Clutter home, ballistic matches to the shotgun used in the killings, and rope and tape consistent with materials found at the crime scene. The most damaging evidence came from the defendants themselves. Both Hickock and Smith's confessions were entered into the record. In open court, jurors learned how the family had been bound, separated, and killed one by one. Medical examiners confirmed that all 4 victims died from shotgun wounds, consistent with the defendant's statements. The defense attempted to argue diminished responsibility, focusing heavily on Perry Smith's traumatic childhood and mental health history. Psychiatric experts testified that Smith suffered from emotional instability, but none concluded that he was legally insane. Hickock's defense focused on shifting blame, suggesting Smith was primarily responsible for the violence. However, the evidence showed that Hickock planned the robbery and knowingly participated in the murders. After just 45 minutes of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict. Both men were found guilty on all counts. The court imposed the mandatory sentence under Kansas law at the time, death by hanging. There was no visible reaction from either defendant. The courtroom fell silent. Justice, at least in the eyes of the law, had been decided. Following their convictions, Richard Hickock and Perry Smith were transferred to Lansing State Penitentiary in Kansas to await execution. What followed was nearly 5 years of appeals. Defense attorneys challenged the verdicts on constitutional grounds, citing issues related to mental health evaluations, interrogation procedures, and sentencing laws. Each appeal was reviewed and ultimately denied by state and federal courts. On April 14, 1965, the final appeals were exhausted. Shortly after midnight, the executions were carried out. Richard Hickock was the first to be hanged. Prison records list the time of death as 12:41 a.m. Perry Smith followed. He was pronounced dead at 1:19 a.m. The executions were conducted according to Kansas law, with witnesses that included prison officials, physicians, and representatives of the state. There were no public statements, no final speeches. No celebration of closure. With their deaths, the legal case officially ended. But the questions surrounding punishment, mental health, and the cost of violence did not. For many in Holcomb, the executions did not erase the loss. They only marked the final line in a story that had already taken too much. A peaceful community, once untouched by violence, was forced to confront the darkest realities of greed, deception, and human cruelty. 4 lives, Herb, Bonnie, Nancy, and Kenyon Clutter, were stolen in a single night, not for revenge, not for personal animosity, but because 2 men believed a lie about money. The story did not end with the execution of Richard Hickock and Perry Smith. Their deaths marked only the conclusion of the legal process, not the pain, grief, or questions left behind. Families still mourned. Friends still wondered how such horror could touch an ordinary household. The murders became a cornerstone of the true crime genre, immortalized by Truman Capote and In Cold Blood. Capote's narrative captured the facts, the victim's humanity, and the cold precision of the killers, showing the world that real-life crimes can be far darker than fiction. Yet beyond books and headlines, the Clutter family remains more than a story. They were real people, devoted parents, caring children, and members of a community who embodied trust and decency. Their deaths were a stark reminder that even ordinary lives can be destroyed by deceit, greed, and violence. In remembering them, we honor their lives and the lesson that the consequences of crime ripple far beyond the immediate act. The Clutter murders continue to serve as a cautionary tale. The line between safety and danger can be thinner than we ever imagine, and the human cost of violence is always real.
Thanks for watching. For more interesting videos, please subscribe.